I'm using cold press watercolour paper, 9 by 12 inches. I put some washi tape around the border and I'm going to cut out a stencil using my scissors and some framing tape. You can use masking tape. I'm just sort of carefully doing this. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle because I'm going to show you how to soften the edges later. So just finishing off that, and here's my little circle, and I'm going to stick it just to the right of centre and above the centre line as well. So anywhere around that area will be perfect for your kind of focal point. I'm using a large sort of soft head brush here. It's a 1-inch flat brush, and I'm wetting the sky area. You may notice there is no drawing. So I'm just mixing up some colours for the sunset sky. This is completely out of my imagination, a great way to practice your watercolour painting. So mixing up buff titanium, a little bit of Hansa yellow light, and I'm painting a little bit of that buff titanium now going right across the sort of sun there, or the framing tape, a little bit of the Hansa yellow light as well, and sort of almost blending the colours on the paper, wet into wet with this size 8 brush. Do use a brush that you're comfortable with, but make sure it's not too small because it can get quite fiddly. So mixing up some quinacridone rose, any pink will do. It's very dilute and I'm painting wet into wet. So I'm basically working light to dark with my colours, starting with the paler, lighter colours first. This is Hansa Yellow Deep. It's almost like an orange, and I'm painting this almost damp into wet. You can see the surface is still very wet, mixing up some Pyrrole Red with that Hansa Yellow Deep. These Daniel Smith colours are hand poured and semi-moist, so you really get a lot of paint out of them, and they are just pans. I usually use tube paint as well to squeeze into my pans, so you can actually decide on both, but you get plenty of paint here, as you can see. Mixing up a little bit more of that Hansa yellow light, really creamy there, and painting that right in the middle of the sun, just beneath. And as you can see, I'm actually tilting to allow the colours to blend and flow, creating this beautiful sunset. I do love painting sunsets in watercolour. So I'm mixing up some cerulean. I'm also going to add a pinch of cobalt turquoise, just because I love this colour, but you could use phthalo blue, just sort of varying the blues there. So mixing them up together. I'm going to paint the top part of the sky with a big brush. You can see it's very, very dilute. Loading my size 8 brush, just painting a little bit of that colour to the right there, wet into wet. I've added some ultramarine to that wash now, loading my brush, painting wet into wet to the left-hand side in the middle of the sky. Mixing up some more cerulean, a little bit creamier, and just painting over that damp into wet there to the left and right and to the top of the sky. Now I'm tilting to allow that paint to blend and mix on the paper. I've got my brush there which I've rinsed off, taken the excess water off, and I'm just sort of helping it along there a little. This is a clean, damp brush. And I'm just collecting the puddles at the side there so they don't trickle back into the painting. I'm literally mixing cerulean, phthalo blue, cobalt turquoise, and a little bit of phthalo green for the sea water here, using my flat 1-inch brush. I've also added a little bit of the Jane's Grey. And I'm painting this damp into damp on the left hand side. And Jane's Grey is basically a mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine to make a beautiful grey, one of my favourite colour mixes, and Daniel Smith have actually made a tube of that colour now. So I'm just painting these sort of darks in the water, damp into damp, keeping away from the orangey red reflections there. Painting some darks there on the horizon using the grey with the cerulean and the tip of my flat 1-inch brush. I've swapped back to my brush and I'm mixing up some Jane's Grey, a little bit of phthalo green, and I'm painting damp into damp there with the size 8 brush. A little bit more of those darker colours there and adding a little bit of burnt umber as well. And I'm using the belly of the brush to paint. If you use the tip of the brush, more paint flows off your brush. If you use the side and the belly of the brush, that's the middle part of the brush, you'll get more damp paint and it won't run off so quickly. I don't want it to bleed into that sky. What I've decided to do is just paint some reflections as well, horizontal marks going into the water to reflect the trees. Make sure your paint is damp and not wet. This is the fun bit. The paint is still damp and I am lifting off using my plastic card. As you can see there, there's the result of that. So here we are, it's a good view here. Just lift off the paint and it just reveals the white of the paper underneath. So you're creating light tree trunks and branches. I'm removing the tape, and it's not a complete circle there, which I'm not worried about because I'm going to use a clean damp brush just to soften the edge there. So I'm using some white gouache straight from the tube, as you see, and I'm just sort of swiping wet on dry directly beneath that sun, some reflection, some white reflection there, and it's giving it a little bit of sparkle, and you just need a few sort of marks to sort of finish off your painting. And I'm removing the washi tape. It reveals a lovely white border, and this always gives me an opportunity to assess to see if I need to do any more to my painting, but I think I'll leave it there for now. If you would like to support the content that I create here on YouTube and get access to my weekly exclusive watercolour classes, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? You'll also get access to longer, more in-depth tutorial with lots more voiceover and a downloadable outline sketch. And you can cancel the membership anytime. Details about the membership can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. Happy painting. Bye for now.